If you've been considering buying real estate, investing in real estate, and you're trying to figure out what strategy to implement in 2026, I've been doing the exact same thing. And I think I have a solution. And it's not creative finance. It's not Airbnb. It's not BRRRR method. Guys, it's not even conventional 20% down rental property. We're talking about a strategy that is super easy, super low down payment, and quite frankly, in today's market, might be the best opportunity and best ROI out there. I'm talking about buying a house, moving into it as your primary residence, and then one day, in a few years, turning it into a rental property. There's a number of great reasons why we're gonna implement this in 2026. I'm gonna share all of those with you on this video to include the numbers behind the decision that we're making. And of course, this applies directly to Bryan-College Station, but the same thought process probably works wherever you are investing or looking to live. So stay tuned, this is gonna be a good one. To better understand why I'm implementing this specific strategy, you probably need to understand my theory on investing. You see, I believe to my core that if I buy as much residential real estate in Bryan-College Station as possible and hold it for the long term, and I'm measuring that in decades, not years, that I will achieve levels of wealth that I can't even imagine. The core of that thesis is residential real estate in a great market that sees population growth, a strong economy, and great appreciation, and a long-term mindset. All of those equal wealth. So I'm not worried about cash flow today or retiring early. I'm worried about buying great real estate in great markets that will appreciate. So now you can understand why this is a great implementation for me, my portfolio, my strategy. Let's talk about some detail. Why this strategy and why right now? Well, quite frankly, when you move into a property and you make it your primary residence, you get access to loan products that investors would only dream of. We're talking about low down payment, low interest rate option, FHA, low down payment conventional, or VA loan. So 0 to 5% down gets you into a property when investors are having to put 20% down. Plus, you're getting an interest rate, usually 0.5% or 1 full percent lower than what the investor gets. Less money in, lower monthly payments are a win for any investment opportunity. And the reason right now is such a good time to implement it is, quite frankly, it's a buyer's market in most markets across the United States. In Bryan-College Station, we have more inventory than we've seen over the last 10 years. And buyers have the upper hand in negotiation. That means that my buyers are getting things like roofs replaced, ACs repaired, or seller credits to help cover closing costs. Another really good option in this buyer's market is to go to the new builders. Once they complete a house, they're providing all kinds of incentives. So you can get your closing costs covered or your rate brought down even further. Seems like a no-brainer to me. So the strategy is a no-brainer, and the buyer's market right now makes it a great time to buy. The difficulty that we face in implementing this is that ultimately we have to fulfill two separate needs. One, this needs to be a great place for our family to live for 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 years, but also it needs to be a great investment property on the backside. Let's talk about the investment property side of things first. When I look at investment properties, I really needed to do 4 things for me. One, I needed to fit in my current management structure. In this case, residential real estate checks that box. We already manage other residential real estate, so easy peasy. Number 2, it needs to make sense when I analyze it. Basically, I need this property to at least break even. When I account for all of the expenses, the mortgage, the tax, the insurance, the HOAs, the management, the maintenance, and the vacancy. Third, I need this property to be something that can last over the next 40 years. If I have a property that I'm constantly dumping money into because it's falling apart on me, well, for one, I won't attract great tenants in that property, and 2, it's probably not a property I'll be able to hold over the long term because, quite frankly, I don't feel like dropping $20,000 or $30,000 into a property every 5 years because it's falling apart. And then lastly, it has to be a property in a location that I see appreciated. The way I do that is I go there to that spot, to that neighborhood, to that street, and I try to visualize myself. Fast forward 40 years. I pop out of my time machine. Is the street better or worse than when I first bought the property? If I envision this area getting better, well, then it passes the 4th pillar and I'm ready to buy. Beyond just being a good investment property, it's also got to be a great place for my family to live because we could be living here for the next 2, 3, maybe 5 years. So we have a few non-negotiables we got to find. Number 1, we need 4 bedrooms. That's 1 for my wife and I, my 2 daughters, and then that 4th bedroom, which would be a guest room for my parents when they come to visit, or an office when they're not there. I also need a garage because I've got a lot of tools. I still like to DIY projects around the portfolio, and I've got some gym equipment. I need a place to work out. I also need a backyard. That's for Chance, or German Shorthair Pointer. He's an older dog, loves to run around. He deserves to have a nice yard. And lastly, we want to be in a quieter neighborhood, someplace where my daughter can learn how to ride a bike without getting clipped by some crazy maniac on some through street. Another requirement that we had for our family is finding a neighborhood that we really wanted to live in that would also have high tenant demand, and for that we landed on the Oakmont neighborhood. What we like about this neighborhood is it has a lot of amenities, it's very sought after, so it has relatively high rent rates, and the price ranges go from $400,000 to $600,000, meaning that we would be buying one of the cheaper houses in a relatively expensive neighborhood, and I think that's a good move when it comes to future appreciation. So our strategy for buying a house in this neighborhood is pretty simple. I plan on having no money down, no closing cost, no cost to move, and ultimately have an infinite return on any appreciation I have on this house. That means that our ultimate goal is to buy a house with no money out of our pocket that sees strong appreciation. We can do this by using a VA loan. That means no money down. We can negotiate with either the builder or the seller to cover our closing costs, and then I can use my commission as a buyer's agent, because I'm a real estate agent, to help cover my moving expense. To put some numbers behind that, if we're gonna buy a $400,000 house in Oakmont and Bryan-College Station sees an average appreciation of 4.85%, that house would presumably appreciate by $19,400. The return on zero money down and $19,000 of equity growth is, well, it's infinite. I would have an infinite return on this investment. That's pretty powerful. But let's look at another scenario. Let's assume I had to use a low down conventional loan and I was gonna put 5% down. And let's assume that I still had to cover some closing costs because my negotiating skills weren't that great. So 5% down would be $20,000. Let's call closing costs somewhere around $10,000. I would be all in for $30,000. The appreciation would be somewhere around $20,000, which is still a 66.6% return on my investment, still extremely powerful. You're probably wondering, but Greg, would it even cash flow? And that's a great question. To answer your question, no, this is not a cash flowing property. And that's not the intent. Remember, I'm after long-term wealth created through appreciation. I'm looking to hold this property for forever. But if you're curious to know what numbers I'm shooting for, my goal is to have principal, interest, tax, insurance, plus HOA, basically my monthly mortgage, under $2,900. And then if I throw in another $100 to $200 to cover things like maintenance, vacancies, and property management, I should have a break-even property because the current rental rates in Oakmont are $2,800 to around $3,400. The good news is I'm not looking to rent it out right now, and I am pretty convinced that rent rates will continue to increase over the next few years. So surely by the time I turn it into a rental, I should be able to achieve $3,200, maybe $3,300, meaning that I just barely break even and cover my expenses on a great property that I will own for forever. The other thing you might be wondering is, Greg, what about that appreciation? You're banking on 4.85% appreciation. That's a lot considering in 2025, our appreciation was only 1.2% in Bryan-College Station. So what says you to that? To that, I says, I don't give a shit about any given year because I'm holding it over the long term. I'm looking at what the average appreciation will be over all of those years. And if history repeats itself, which it tends to do, we're looking at 4.85% average median home price appreciation because that's what it was for the last 35 years. So now that you know everything about my strategy, what I'm looking to implement, and the numbers behind it, do you think this is a good strategy to implement this year? Would you be looking to buy a house to move into to turn into a rental property? If you are in the market within the next 90 days, we should set up a strategy call. If you look in the description below, all my contact information is down there. You can set up a call with me on my calendar link or shoot me an email. If you're further than 90 days out, you should probably go ahead and subscribe to this channel and to our newsletter where we drop a new deal of the week every single week so you can know what's going on here in the Bryan-College Station market. But if you do nothing else until I drop the next video next week, you take it easy.